Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. How are you? I hope that all of you are well by the grace of Almighty Allah. I am fine too. Welcome you all to NIVS Home School. This is Mamudur Rahman, assistant teacher of English, National Ideal English Version School. Today I am going to take an English second paper class for the students of class 8. Our today's topic is voice change, and today we will learn the basic rules of voice change and then the changing methods of assertive sentence. Okay, let's see the board at first. This is today's date, 6th of February 2028, term half yearly 2022. This is the class for the students of class 8, subject English second paper, topic voice change and voice change of assertive sentence. This is your lecture number 2 and your homework number also 2. I repeat again, this is your lecture number 2 and your homework number 2. This is your teacher Mamudur Rahman and this is my homework. This is my mobile number 01735 852285. Okay, let's start. At first we will learn about a voice. What is voice? Definition of voice. Voice is the form of a verb which is used to say what people or things do or what is done to them. So there are two things here. Voice means what people say or things do or what is done to them. So there are also two types of voices, active voice and number 2 passive voice. Active voice is the form of a verb which is used to say what the subject does. That means here the subject is the doer, and passive voice is the opposite of active voice. That means passive voice is the form of a verb which is used to say what happens to the subject, yet the subject doesn't do directly anything. For example, in active voice, subject he, verb writes, and object a letter. So if we take this for an example, this is in active voice, he writes a letter. Here the word write is completed by the subject he, and now we will convert it in the passive voice. Subject a letter, verb is written and the object by him. Look here, the subject of active voice has become object in the passive voice, and at the same time object of the active voice becomes the subject of passive voice. In the first sentence, that means in active voice, we can say what the subject does, and in the second sentence, that means in passive voice, here it is expressed that what is done to the subject. That means a letter that was the object of active becomes the subject, and the subject of this active sentence becomes the object. Now, object. What is object? She gives me a book. Here, what or whom? If we ask the verb with the words what or whom, the answer we get is the object of a sentence. I repeat again, when we ask the verb a question with what and whom, the answer we get is the object of a sentence. Here we have to put a full stop. Okay. Object is of two kinds, direct object and indirect object. Direct object a book, that means thing, and indirect object me, that means person. So indirect object is always person and direct object is always thing. She gives me a book. Here me is the indirect object and a book is the direct object. Now we will learn rules of changing active from passive. Sorry, this is active to passive. Rule number 1, object becomes subject. Number 2, auxiliary verb becomes to tense. Auxiliary verb according to tense, we have to add auxiliary verb while changing active voice to passive voice. Number 3, past participle of verb. Number 4, preposition by, with or to. And number 5, subject becomes object. We have already done an example. Here are 2 or 3 more examples for your better understanding. Number 1, active voice. He writes a letter. Here he is the subject, writes is the verb, and a letter is the object. So the object will become the verb, that means a letter, and we have to add auxiliary verbs according to tense. This is written in present indefinite tense, and in the present indefinite tense there are auxiliary verbs am, is or are. So is will be the auxiliary verb, and then we have to write down the past participle of the verb write. That means a letter is written, and then we will use preposition by, with and to. Most of the time we will use by, but in exceptional cases we also have to use with and to. By and he, the he of active voice, that means which was the subject, will become the object. So he writes the letter will be transformed into passive as a letter is written by him. Number 2, he has broken the glasses. This is an example of present perfect tense. So here he is the subject, has broken is the verb, and the plates is the object of this sentence. So the plates have been broken by him. It will be the passive form of this sentence. Number 3, they can help me. We'll transform it, I can be helped by them. Now if I give a list of auxiliary verbs in different tenses, it will be more clear to you. Name of the tense: present tense, present indefinite, continuous and perfect. So in present indefinite tense, the auxiliary verbs will be am, is, are. In past indefinite tense, the auxiliary verbs will be was and were. In future indefinite tense, the auxiliary verbs will be shall be and will be. Continuous tense. In present continuous tense, the auxiliary verbs will be am being, is being and are being. In past continuous, was being and were being, and in future continuous, shall be being, will be being. Okay, in present perfect tense, we have to use have been and has been as auxiliary verbs. In past perfect, had been, and in future perfect, we'll use shall have been and will have been. So there are 9 tenses for your voice changes. For your attention, it can be said that there is no voice change of perfect tenses. That means present perfect continuous, perfect continuous tenses. Present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous and future perfect continuous are not mentioned here, because there will be no voice change of these 3 tenses. Now use of defective verbs. There are some verbs that when we change their active form into passive, we have to change these verbs too. Okay, can will become can be, could will become could be, shall be, should be, will be, would be, may be, might be, must be, used to be, ought to, ought to be. That means these all are also modal verbs. After all the modal verbs, you have to add extra be verb, be. Okay. Now we will change the following active voices into passive. This is the change for assertive sentences. The first one, she writes a letter. Look here, she is the subject, writes is the verb, and letter is the object. So we will, according to the rules, we will write down the object as a subject. That means a letter. Now we will add, as this is present indefinite tense, we will add is as the auxiliary verb. A letter is now the past participle form of the main verb, that means written. A letter is written. Now we will add by. She is the subject. Now it will become as the object. So a letter is written by her. Number 2, she is calling me. This is in present continuous tense, and from the auxiliary, the box of auxiliary verbs, we have learned that for present continuous we will use is being, am being, and are being as auxiliary verbs. So I am being called by her. The next sentence, the teacher has advised us. This is the example of present perfect tense. We'll use have been or has been as the auxiliary verb here, and as is the object. The teacher is the subject of this sentence, so object will become the subject. We have been. Now the verb advised will sit here automatically because this is the past participle form, and by the teacher. The next sentence, I lost my watch. Here I is the subject, lost is the verb, I is the subject, lost is the verb, and my watch is the object. So my watch will be the subject of passive voice, my watch. Now we will add auxiliary verb. Watch is singular, so we will use was, and then lost as the past participle of the verb, and then by, and I will replace by me, because we know that the objective form of I is me. The next one, they were making a stage. This is past continuous tense, so the passive voice of this sentence will be a stage was being made by them. The next sentence is past perfect tense. I had done the sum. So you can easily understand that the sum will become the subject. The sum had been done by me. Here we had used had been as the auxiliary verb. The next one, active, I shall see a bird. This is future indefinite tense, and it will be a bird will be seen by me. The next one, you will have drawn the map. This is the example of future perfect tense, and the passive voice of this sentence will be the map will have been drawn by you. Next one, we can do it. Can is the modal verb, and we have learned just that after can we will use can be. So it can be done by us. The next one, you may do the sum. This is the same. May is also a modal verb, so the sum may be done by you. The last one, he might eat rice. This is also an example of a defective verb or modal auxiliary verb. He might eat rice. Rice might be eaten by him will be the passive form of this sentence. Now dear students, this is sorry, this is the homework for your next in this class, today's class, HW number 2. There are some sentences. I am reading the active form of the sentences. So she writes a letter. She is calling me. The teacher has advised us. I lost my watch. They were making a stage. I had done the sum. I shall see a bird. You will have drawn the map, and we can do it. This is your homework. You will turn all these sentences into passive voices. Okay, my dear students, I hope that you have understood today's lecture very well. If you have further questions or further inquiries, please contact me through my mobile number or my messenger. Watch this class and submit your homeworks on every Saturday from 9 AM to 3 PM. Thank you so much. See you in the next class. Allah Hafiz.